og dem...
For noget, ja!
Fed stream. Tak for det. Tak. Skal vi tage til Ohio og spise kastanjer og så skifte det toilet, please? Ohio. Oh my god, mand.
I ved, du har solen.
Den kan man ikke lave.
Du vinder det her.
Ja da.
Ja da.
Hvad?
Hvad nummer er du i Unreal?
Så 30.000.
Nå, okay.
Hvad er du i, Tobi?
Det er 100 plus, fordi jeg er først lige kommet i det næste.
Ja. Alright, det giver mening. Nå, jamen det var nok egentlig det sidste game.
Ja.
Ja, så tak for games. Jeg lige var her. Ja, vi ses, Tobi. Hej.
Ja, vi ses. Hej.
Sådan der. Alright, chat. Det var simpelthen streamen for i dag. Jeg håber, at jeg nødte den. Der var godt nok lige nogle games med noget streamsnipe og så videre. Og så er jeg også en lille smule træt oven på 26 timers livestream i går. Så ja. Ja, kom så! Kom nu!
Bare stille.
Kom nu! Yeah! Pickaxe kill! Gritty! Nice! Sindssygt! Sikke en måde at slutte af på. Lige sådan 22 kill game. Eller hvor mange der lige var. Ej, det var vanvittigt der. Det var vanvittigt. Nå, jamen tak for games, gutter.
Selv tak.
Ja, selv tak.
Det var nice. Vi fik lige 2 i træk, Jule, og så lige en her med Golden Jay også. Ej, det var fedt. Jamen, jeg vil simpelthen hoppe af. Men det kan være, at vi skal spille igen på et andet tidspunkt.
Er det ikke til at vide? Det kan godt være.
Det er jo det. Vi snakkes ved.
Det gør vi.
Ja.
Hej.
Hej.
Sådan der. Alright, chat. Vi har simpelthen streamet nu i 10 timer.
Yes.
Far, jeg er et geni! Vi behøver ikke at fryse mere. Jeg kan få os væk herfra.
Det kan godt blive svært, når vi ikke har vinger.
Ja, men jeg har Red Bull. Det kan vinger. Alt, hvad vi skal gøre, er bare at drikke det.
Og hvordan det?
Kom nu, far. Drik det nu bare. Se her. Hvorfor?
Hvorfor? Det er minus 40 grader. Tror du, vi står her for sjov?
Red Bull giver vinger, men kun hvis du drikker det.
Nations 11, they weren't reflective of the teams that got the top 5 places.
No, how?
Teams that qualified for the actual EWC LAN were not the ones that were super aggressive early on.
Hvad kalder man en kræven på toppen af et scoreboard? En ting. Guden. Ej, det gør man godt nok ikke. Koala, tak for follow og velkommen til.
Hvad kalder man ikke? Hvad?
Aben siger, hvad kalder man en kræven på toppen af et scoreboard? Og så er hans svar bare guden. Men der er jeg jo villig til at være uenig.
Hvad vil du så kalde det, hvis du er uenig?
Fucking luck.
It's one of those teams that
when you are looking at the map and you're thinking, who do we want to avoid? Chap and Flixie are the first team on your mind, right? They're two of the best fighters on the region, and when it comes to reload, you'd expect them to be towards the top, and to only get 6th place wasn't really what they expected. Had a really slow start, to be honest, but I don't think that's really going to affect them too much. They're going into today with probably a similar playstyle, even though Slurpee isn't as contested as it was last time. They'll be aggressive when they need to. They'll get the loot they want to get, and what I hope to see is some more of their pop-off moves that we know they can do.
Yeah, we definitely want to see that and more. So let's head over to Taka and Takata to see who they've got their eyes on.
Reload Elite Series Finals, but at the end of the day, we've got some very familiar faces that are still looking to heat up today's competition, and one duo that I have to mention is going to be Darm and Deemish. We saw them in the first Reload Elite Series Finals. Things didn't necessarily pan out in their favor, though. They were, unfortunately, not able to hit their qual for the LAN Finals in that first series. But Takata, things can change. They've also switched up their drop map position. They're no longer going to be headed towards that north side of Slurpee Swamp. Instead, taking their luck over to Fort Crumpet, but it was a nail-biter heats for them. They barely skirted through with an 8th game performance of a lifetime to be here tonight. And so, things are really on the line right now.
Yeah, I mean, they got 9th place in the previous finals, and now, you said things switch up quickly. It was looking like they were going to be contested at Fort Crumpet, but they are now uncontested, and honestly, I think things are looking bright. They got the motivation from a solid performance in the last qualifier finals, but now, you know, they want to get that top 3. They want to make it to that $2.5 million.
Obviously, and with the great Coach Vine and Sven behind them, I'm sure anything is possible, but they're not going to be the only ones in today's competition. So let's head on back over to Frankie, Levin, and Harry.
Shout out to Sven. We love him here on the desk. But let's talk about what's going to be happening in terms of strategies and what we're expecting. Because if we look back to our first qualifying final back in February 11, we saw variations on strategies when it came to the end game and the height situation.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I just said earlier, right? The key sort of skill gap in Reload right now is just your ability to have successful end games. And I think the key way is going to be being aggressive towards playing for height, right? We're seeing success come from teams on height. But like you said, you know, there were plenty of different approaches to it, right? And Harry, you're obviously a coach. You've seen and prepared some teams to play in these types of lobbies. Like, what of the different approaches you've seen be? Because for me, I was shocked to see Twek and Midra looking as experienced as they did last weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, we're looking at game 1 here, which they ended up winning first of 2, and the first thing you've got to notice is the zone, right? When it pulls far like this, teams are going to have less shockwave. It's going to be easier to hold height, and as this is one of the most stable heights we saw in the finals last time around, and the next thing is obviously the early connection, and then the pressure towards second height and tracking the med misters who at some point will be looking to take height with a shockwave if they can. And we compare it to game 2, probably the most chaotic game we had, and as you can see, it's already starting out really chaotic with teams fighting towards the high ground. And when they set up this ulti-height position, you can see they don't have exact track on who potentially is looking up, who might be med misting. And as you can see, because their connection point wasn't also that strong as well, and the zone was towards Slurpee and more teams had shockwaves, they get double chopped out instantly. Podesai and Asa ended up taking height and fighting Flixie and Chap towards it. And even with all this chaos happening, another team, Vico and Malabuka, end up capitalizing on their mistakes. The fact that no one's able to set up height correctly and actually end up taking height from them. And this wasn't even the end of it. Teeny and Shark end up taking it off them afterwards. And to be honest, when you are looking to take height in Reload, it is one of those things you have to take so much into consideration with who's in the lobby and the zone and everything towards those things. And to be honest, we're going to see loads of action. I'm going to be shocked if we don't see pretty much the same amount of messiness towards height today.
Levin, let's look at some numbers from Sky and Scroll. They're a duo that unfortunately didn't make it to the lobby tonight, but they did place second last time. What kind of approach did they take to find most of their success?
Yeah, I think the important learning from these two was that when you think of Sky and Scroll, they're not traditionally a height team, right? I think a lot of people look at their mid-ground and low-ground prowess, but even they understood that height is key to success in these lobbies. And so they spent 5 minutes in total on height in the first qualifier, which was the 4th most of any team in the lobby, and they went for it in half of their games. the important thing I think most people can take away from these guys is, again, even if you aren't a team that feels comfortable playing for height early, like sort of how Harry explained, you have to understand that there will come a time where you have to play it, right? You see how in this game, they still kept 3 shockwaves ready right till the end so that they were prepared to go up for it. And I think that in itself just shows no matter what type of team you are, there's gonna come a time where height has to be played in these. Absolutely.
Especially if you're a team like Shark and Tini, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Harry, I think this is my favorite team when it comes to watching how they play high in these lobbies personally.
I mean, you look, if you want to learn how to play an aggressive fight, dropping down on teams, fighting them, this is Tini and Shark. Even though they can play, you know, the more safe way, you know, playing ulti high, just pressuring teams, tracking the teams who might look to shockwave up, they have the capabilities. We all know that. 2 of the best mechanical players, fighters on the region, and they can drop down on anyone. They can get huge elimination games. Just on Friday, they got a 24 elimination win in the heats, and that should be some of the top teams in the region, and they're still able to drop that high amount of elims. And to be honest, if they're not taking height, something's gone wrong off spawn. Maybe they've ended up getting into too many aggressive situations which they didn't want to do. As you didn't see them on the elimination leaderboard, they weren't actually wanting to be aggressive. So maybe with the shackles off, we'll see a little bit even more from them, even though they won last time.
Yeah, I think that's the real scary thing. The shackles are off, right? They ain't got that pressure of having to qualify. They got the job done already. And so now it's like, we can just play our game. We can just have fun with it. If Shark and Tini are feeling like, yeah, we just want to frag out this game.
Velkommen til den her video. I dag skal vi simpelthen lave Snapchat-udfordringer med jer.
Because Harry, I know they're a duo that you will be particularly looking to get success tonight, and there's a good reason why. These are some of the
Vi skal lave Snapchat-udfordringer, og I har stillet os en masse udfordringer ind på Snapchat, som vi skal til at læse højt nu. Ja. Vi har simpelthen lagt en story ud, hvor vi har bedt jer om at sende nogle udfordringer ind til os, så dem vil vi vise i dag, og så vil vi gøre de udfordringer, I har bedt os om at gøre. Så hvis du er med i den næste Snapchat, halløjsa-ting, enten Q&A eller udfordringer, så er jeg på Snapchat, når du står der, og så er der kommet med i den næste video. Men lad os bare hoppe ind i den første udfordring.
Something you don't see a lot of teams wanting to do. So if they can get out of their contested situation at Stilt Town, they can get to off-sport, or they can get to endgame even. And when they get to endgame, you know they can boss the lobby. You know they can play. I would be shocked if they don't go into a lot of these endgames.
Okay, men hvem skal jeg vælge?
Yeah, I mean, this guy's got a lot of pressure on them, right? You mentioned how they approached the leagues, they were on it every single game, but you're right, there were a lot of messy high games for them, even when they take things early. I want to see improvement from them. I think that's the
Der var så skrevet lige her. Bum, skal vi vente på svaret, eller? Så siger vi venter vores crush svaret. Har de crush svaret? Fuck, hun skriver, ja okay, det er lidt akavet det her. Jeg ved ikke lige, hvad jeg skal sige. Nej, det står der faktisk. Okay, det er dumt det her. Nu er det begyndt at gå godt. For helvede, mener du det? Skal vi stoppe nu? Er det en joke? Jeg svarer bag. Er det en prank? Du kan så være ærlig over for hende nu. Det er en prank. Hun har set det. Jeg har skrevet, ja, det er en prank. Fuck, det er tavle. Hun er bare mad nu.
Det er dårligt det her. Allerede den første
udfordring, men så er det bare, jeg kan jo godt lide dig. Kæmpe ikke stedet for prank, jo. Kæmpe selvmål. Hvad gør du nu? Nu er det ikke en prank. Det er for sjovt, det var en prank. Det var en prank. Hvorfor står hun så hurtigt? Gud, har jeg set det? Men du tog hun bare i rummet. Nå, vi skal videre. Næste udfordring kommer her.
Min udfordring til jer er, at en af jer tre skal lave en klam drik til 2 af de andre, og så skal vi se, hvem af jer der kan hurtigst.
Okay, vi skal lave en klam drik til hinanden, og så skal vi se, om vi kan drikke den hurtigt.
Solidarisk opgave.
Vi tager alle sammen ind. Okay, jamen så lad os komme ud og få lavet nogle klam drinks.
If both teams are doing well and they're at the top of the leaderboard, it'll be a nice chill time.
Mælk og vodka.
But if things go wrong,
1, 2, 3.
we're gonna see action.
Can I just say, no one has ever in the history of Fortnite described Vika as chill?
Ej, det er klammeste, jeg nogensinde har smagt det her.
Sikkert hellere drikke det uden mælk.
Jeg har bare kuldekysning her. Men kan det være, at det bliver fremhævet? Smagen af vodka bliver fremhævet så fucking meget i mælk? Ej, det drikker jeg ikke. Det drikker jeg ikke. Det drikker jeg simpelthen ikke. Nej.
Der kan det ikke. Det er virkelig ulækkert. Det er virkelig ulækkert.
The most expensive melee from Roblox rivals in real life. Starting with the trowel. Even though it builds a wall in the game, in real life it's worth about $15, which is way cheaper than the knife, costing around $50. This leads me to the maul, which only costs about 20 more than the knife, but that doesn't compare to the battle axe, which can cost up to $150 in real life. That's expensive. However, the chainsaw is over twice that price, costing about $400, around the same price as a scythe. But I kept looking, and while the riot shield is the most expensive so far, costing over $1,000 for a real bulletproof riot shield, the most expensive melee in Roblox Rivals is actually the fists, costing over $250,000 for the surgery alone. So what is the most expensive melee from Roblox Rivals in real life?
Hvad så alle sammen, og velkommen til den her video. I dag der skal vi simpelthen lave... Tak.
Look at this dude.
Ikke lækkert. Det er en kæmpe like. Og så har Jeppe øl. Ikke prøv at på mig. Ej, jeg hopper.
Good news is you don't have to wait long. Look, that shows confidence
Okay.
in my opinion. Will they commit to it though?
Okay.
What I'm thinking is I
I
don't
gang med...
see Dirty Docs actually fully contested, so maybe they switched it up last minute, but the big question is to where?
That'll be something that everyone else in the lobby has to worry about, but it really shouldn't come as a big surprise seeing Shark and Teeny have all of Dirty Dogs exclusively to themselves. It is such a bold maneuver to try and challenge a team that is already locked in their position at the EWC LAN Finals. So for Shark, Teeny, world's their oyster, at least in game one. But we'll have to see what happens to Kurama here now as Teeny, Shark immediately looking for the collapse. They recognize that this is a solo. Kurama just trying to create some distance now, but even on the retreat, Shark, Teeny, they have no issues chasing this one down.
Yeah, I mean, having already confirmed a spot in that $2.5 million land, they can play as aggressive as they want. If already they were playing aggressive in the last finals, playing aggressive height, playing aggressive in the early mid game, they're just gonna amplify that this time around. And you know, as this pursuit continues, I did see on the feed Malibuka went down, Pixie went down. I'm hoping those fights haven't fully concluded yet, but as Kurama gets picked up, Shark's now gonna disengage and regroup with Teeny as they might even have begun another hunt.
Well, here trying to see what he can do to escape, but Vico, Kurama, we're just gonna have to wait and see. You should be able to touch down now because it's all emphasis onto Vico here. Teeny and Shark want to see if they can lock in yet another elimination, but it's almost a trade out. Fortunately, Shark, a little bit of suppressive fire there, is going to be able to back up Teeny, but they are going to need to take some time now to refarm a little bit of materials. They didn't actually get off to a really strong start with their mat count because they just went for the immediate eliminations, but 6 points to kick things off. No real shocker though. We knew that this duo was going to be scrappy. We also knew that for Vico and Malibuka, they were probably going to encounter their fair share of